Hi, everyone. I've been gone for a little while. Personal issues, I guess you could say. I've been reaching kind of a stage of a bit of a burnout, and I've decided to take a little while off from job and everything else that's going on. So I'm actually in Germany. Surprise, surprise. And because I'm in Germany, I took the time to go to my warehouse stash that Grandma Kena keeps for me, and I picked out some old rums that I had not looked at in a very long while. And of course, one of them, one of my very favorites, one of the best of the first rums that I ever tried back when I was still starting this gig, is this one. Now, this is the Bristol Spirits Port Morant 1980. 30-year-old. Yes, you heard it right. It's a 30-year-old rum. It doesn't say so on the bottle, but trust me, that's what it is. It's bottled at 51%. And when I first bought it at the Rum Depot in Berlin in 2012, I couldn't believe that there was something like this still for sale. It was the oldest rum pretty much, aside from the Appleton 30 that I tried up to that point. And the Appleton 30 was a special edition, while this one was something of a, not so much a special, it was just a limited release, by an independent bottler. Now, um, Bristol Spirits has been around since about 1995 when John Barrett, who is that well-dressed gentleman that you sometimes see hanging around rum festivals with his son-in-law, Simon. And they have done some really incredible work in their early years. They're still going strong up to this moment. You still see them around all the time, and they still do produce these indie bottlings that are really quite impressive. However, for now, Mr. Barrett is more into the trading and blending and selling on of barrels that he has from his very extensive stocks, while his son-in-law is the one who's doing the marketing of the new stuff that is coming out that is more consistent with the indie bottling scene. But back in the day, they weren't very well known. You have to go back to 2012, 2013 to understand that at that time the indie scene really was quite minimal. There were a few, but many of them were whiskey makers. Cadenhead was an example. Velier had, of course, been on the scene, but not very many people knew about them. And you pretty much picked up what you could get. This cost me, I believe, about 120 euros back then. I have never ever seen it on Rum Auctioneer, and I don't know if any of the other small little auction sites have ever had it. But I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that this was one of the best rums of its kind that I ever had, and it was the one that informed me of how well and how much I enjoyed the Port Morant profile. Now, here's a strange thing. Port Morant is actually in Guyana closer to the Berbice River than the Demerara River. So you might reasonably ask, well, why is it called a Demerara rum? Because that's what's on the label, right? It's a Port Morant Demerara rum 1980. But you have to understand that the Demerara rum is more like a description of style as opposed to something that is actually more geographic in nature. It's the way that Trinidad rums, for example, which is a former English colony, actually cohere and are more consistent with a Spanish style of rum making than that of actually British. So, forget the geography now. The important thing to understand is that the Port Morant double wooden pot stills, one of the three heritage stills that to this day are housed at Diamond Estate which is on the Demerara River in Guyana, moved around quite a bit. I do believe it was in Iflucht for a while, and then it got moved into Port Morant for a while, and then, of course, by the turn of the century, everything got consolidated at Diamond. And over and beyond that, it's a double wooden pot still. It is bottled at 51%. It's made from molasses. No idea about the fermentation. This was days before you knew any of this kind of stuff. And it is one of the oldest rums of its kind ever made. Now, of course, Velier did have the Port Morant 72, the 74, the 75, but at the time, nobody knew anything about them, and this was what we got, and I still consider myself extraordinarily fortunate to get it. And the fact that Bristol Spirits still has another one I think they did one in, was it 2022, 2023, that was also about 30 years old, where, they've really got some stuff squirreled away that I can't wait to see them get. What else can I tell you about it? Not a whole lot. So I'm going to go straight and deal with it right now. Now, this was my 162nd review. So at the time, I thought that was really quite incredible, as if I knew what I was talking about then. But one of the things about this that I really enjoy is that it throws a light on the way rums were made at a time before we knew very much about it and before the Renaissance that we're currently living through really kicked off ahead of steam. And for 30 years old, this thing is freaking incredible. The thing that strikes me about it right off the bat is just how deep it is for 51%. Now, you notice the color, right? I mean, you'd think that after 30 years old, the oak is going to be so dominant in this thing that all you're going to get is a bunch of woody chips and, it's going to spoil everything else. That's actually not the case at all. What you can find if you smell it carefully is wax crayons, honey, red cherries, lumber, of course, that's always a characteristic of the wooden still, and of course, anise. You always get a little bit of licorice in there. For Enmore, you tend to see a little bit more of sawdust and sawn lumber, but here that's tempered quite a bit. You don't quite get that. You get something that's a little bit more deep and a whole lot of black fruits like prunes and, blackberries, deep, dark cherries, plums, that kind of thing. And the taste. Man, for 51%, this thing, without any finishing in additional casks, without any additions, without any filtration, without any additional coloring, without nothing. This is pretty much as you're getting straight out of the barrel. It is really quite incredible. I mean, the tastes are just so rich, and it's so smooth too. I mean, I don't like using that word, but it really goes down easy. It doesn't bite. It doesn't scratch at your throat or anything like that. 51% is really just about the perfect strength for this kind of thing. Renegade and some others, 80 Rattray and Caden and so on, they just love to stick around 4 to 6%. But for my money, I think getting closer to 50% might be a better deal for some of these uber-aged rums. I mean, dialing them down to 4 to 6% may not actually be the best idea. But tasting it, okay, so fruit notes, apricots, pineapples, yellow mangoes, of course, that woody note to it, of course, the licorice, the anise. You do get some molasses. Yeah, I mean, the anise and the licorice do take on something of a commanding stance, but that does kind of dial itself back after a while, and you get paint, candle wax, turpentine. Again, the fruits are just all over the place, and they lend a really nice balance because they balance each other off really, really well. At the time when I first tried this was something completely unique in its own way. You just didn't get this kind of thing. So, I scored it at 90 points back in the day, and I thought that might be a little bit too excessive, but actually, no, it should be a little bit higher. And what I wanted to point out to this, so nice. What I wanted to point out in trying a rum like this, which unfortunately is exceedingly rare, and I've actually never found anybody who had another bottle of it, was that it's made for sipping. It's absolutely good by itself. Of course, you can put some ice in it. Mixing it might actually be a crime, but I believe that this is one of those rums that not only sheds a light on the way rums used to be made, although for a less discerning audience, surely, but I do believe that we are born with our minds open to wonderful experiences, and then gradually through life and the way things are right now, we end up limiting ourselves to narrow and more circumscribed tastes, and the blends start to take over, and the common man denominator is everything. But every now and then you come across something like this that really is quite spectacular. It just blows the barn doors off. And that's what I believe that this rum actually symbolizes to me, which is one reason that I have such fond memories of it. The overall profile is absolutely Demerara from start to finish, even with those little fusel notes that creep in from time to time. And I have had whiskey guys at a book club of mine in Calgary who absolutely went apeshit for this and just about damaged my bottle over there to pieces. I did have two. This is like the second one. But it's not the best rum in the world, of course not. No rum ever will be, but it's as close as you're going to get to one of these almost perfect rums of its style that's ever been made. And if I was to go back to it now, and actually I did go back to it, and I have been having this all afternoon, since I came back from the storehouse, I actually believe this is probably 93, 94 points would be a better score for it. I love this rum so much, and it has informed my preferences for the Demerara rum style and the Port Morant in particular over the other heritage stills, although, of course, as I've mentioned, the UF30E isn't bad either. It's old beyond compare. It is tasty to a fault, and it really is one of the best rums I've ever tried. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you ever do manage to get a try, if you ever pass through Berlin, my apartment, there's still some left for you. So I do hope you manage to try it one day, and good luck to all of you, and have a really very nice day. Bye.